Hello everyone, welcome back to Check the JavaScript series. So today we are going to cover hosting and temporary dead gem. So this is one of the common, very popular terminology that you might have heard in interviews, and people do ask question if you are going for any front end role. So if you don't know hosting, if you don't know about the temporary dead zone, so this is a red mark, and we are going to get our expertise in this particular session. So keep watching this episode till the end, and you are going to love this episode like anything. Okay, so with that, what we are going to cover. So in today's session, Babu Bhaiya have brought you the concepts related to where, let, const, how these are hosted. Not limited to that, we are also going to cover on the function side, like if we have name function or the anonymous function, if the hosting basically happens, if yes, how that basically works, and like how do you distinguish? Sometimes you get an error basically when you use the you can say anonymous function, and sometimes it works when you use the name function. What happens behind the scene? Everything that we are going to learn in this particular session. We are going to also talk about if you should use the let const. We know, like, people say that, hey, if you're going with the ES6, let's go and use the let and const, that is better. But why? We are going to cover all of those things. So stay tuned, watch till the end, and many interesting things we will practice, we will learn. Cool. So before we jump into the coding and I jump into explaining the concepts, I just wanted to say this is a part of whatever we are learning. This is a part of a series that I started. This is a part of a course which is freely available right now to get started, which is called Chakde Javascript, right? So you can go on the portal, and which is like KodeKarma.dev. You go over there. Apart from the other like Chakde DSA and Chakde Frontend, there is a Chakde JavaScript. So this is like 30 days of curated stuff basically, which is created. If you go over there, you will be able to enroll, quickly go over there. So a couple of things in case you don't know, just helping you to understand. So you can go into the different, you can say, sessions, which is day by sessions, which are curated over here. You will be able to see my videos. You will be able to see others creators video. So I'm here not going to promote like, hey, because you are watching my channel or my content, you are limited to that. No, I'm here to give you the best content available on the internet. Similarly, the content that you see in the readable format, which is going to help you in your revision, interview preparation, and you can quickly go through the great example. Not limited to that, I'm very firm believer of, like, you just mug up these concepts and see fancy stuff on the YouTube or in the videos. That is not going to help. You have to come, you have to practice, you have to get your hand dirty. For that, you have these sections where you can go into any of the, you can say, code, you can go practice. So while you are practicing, if you are not able to like know everything, you can also go into the solutions, watch the solutions, basically how it is being solved. You can also try out submissions, like what other people have submitted. You can watch those submissions from the other people as well. Once you are done, you can play around, you can submit, see how many attempts you took in order to complete your code, right? So similarly, there are many cool hidden capabilities which are launched over here. When you try to submit a solution, you will also get feedbacks. When I say feedback, you will get the AI generated feedback with every solution. So if you have not tried, please try out and give a shout out basically on the internet, guys. That will be really helpful for me to keep on building great stuff for you. Now, coming back to our concept that we were talking about, let's jump into what the hell this hosting is, right? So let me go first to the technical definition, which is difficult most of the time to remember, but it's okay. But because sometimes interviewer do expect, hey, can you tell me something technical? You go with the technical one, then I will tell you my version of definition so that you can remember always. So we'll talk about both the version. Let's talk about the technical. When we say hosting, you have to understand two important concepts in JavaScript. One is your declaration and second is initialization, right? That is something which is very important. The other part is you have compilation phase and you have a execution phase, right? Compilation, before your JavaScript start executing, it try to structure, put everything and try to do line by line by execution. That is your compilation. Execution is like you go one by line by line, and then you execute. So now coming to your hosting. Hosting is a behavior in which you are moving your declaration of the variable to the top. It's like you are preparing some guest list where all the people who are invited, basically they may be coming at different time on the event, but at least your anchor knows the name of everyone who are going to be part of that particular event at a high level, right? So this is like your declaration are moving on the top. But for some, you can say storage which are container like var, let, const, Some of them, these are moved, some of them are not moved, right? So I will tell you basically how that works, right? So don't worry around that. So remember your declaration moving up, initialization remaining the same. So your variable getting hosted, your declaration is stop, your variable is still there. In some cases it works, some cases it not. Let's try to understand. Before I jump into the code, I wanted to help you to like listen to an example and we will go and relate it back. So whenever we say hosting, right? And there is another concept which is called temporary dead zone. So let's try to remember one definition. When I say hosting, it is like you end up going to your relatives without a invitation, or you reach probably early to your guest. They invited for a dinner or something and you reached early. It may be your in-laws, it can be your other close relative. They may not feel happy, right? You are not a valuable person at that particular moment because you reached early. So people don't value you. So you don't have any value at this moment if you reached early, right? That is happens in case of where, right? That is what we call as hosting. People don't say that, hey, I don't know, you go back and whatnot. People say that, hey, you came, it's okay, you said, but they are not going to respect because they are busy in their work, right? Cool. So let's get started with some of the cool example and let's try to understand what the hell this hosting is. Generally, as we are talking about, we have two part. When I say this is called the declaration and this is called the initialization. I hope you remember from our initial, you can say, session. Now, coming back, what happens? Generally, when you write a code in JavaScript, you write multi-line of code, right? You define some variable on the top, some bottom. Lot of these things basically happen. So let's try to understand how a real life code basically looks like. Example, I may be writing, hey, I have normal, say suppose var a is equal to 10, then I have var b is equal to 20, and then I may be doing some var total is equal to maybe a plus b kind of thing basically we are doing. Now, let me try to help you to understand if I try to access these variable at different level, what is going to be the outcome. We'll start from there and we'll see the outcomes basically. If I try to access the variable at this level, which is console.log example, and I try to say, hey, what is the value basically at this level? So which is, if I try to access at this level, I try to access the variable probably at this level, and then similarly I'm going to try to access all the variable at different levels so that you are able to see what is happening, maybe one at a time so that you don't get confused. So let's see with a simple example, which is maybe at this moment, only this example. Perfect. So you have two things, which is you have a variable a is equal to 10. You are trying to access before this variable is declared and initialized, and you are trying to access afterwards. Let's see in both the cases what is the outcome that we are going to probably see over here. So in this we see example.com. Let's see why it did not get executed. Why are we not seeing the console log? Okay, so you have a var. Okay, let me see what happened. Sources, and we have example. Okay, this is an example. What do we have? Oh, we did not add a question mark. Let's add it. No worries. Now, if you see in this case, the first one is your undefined and second one you got a value as in 10. Like, why even you are able to access a value over here which is called undefined? Ideally, it should say, boss, I don't know A. A is not available at this moment. A is available at line number 4. So it should actually start accessing the value from here, not at here, ideally, right? So what it made to basically give you a value as an undefined at this level. Something is happening, right? You are able to access the value 10, which is completely fine because you have declared, you have initialized, you are able to access, which is completely fine. But in this case, how do you are able to access basically value which is undefined at this moment? This is happening because of hosting. As I said, you reached early and people were not expecting at this moment, but those are close relative or in-laws. They say, oh, okay, you come sit, but they are not going to value. How that happens? In this case, what hosting does? Hosting says my declaration will move to the top, my declaration will move to the top where my initialization will remain on the same place. Hear me out again. Only your declaration will move to the top and your initialization will remain at the same place. What does it mean? Your code after hosting will convert into something. Everything remains the same. Only your declaration will move to the top and your initialization will remain as it is. So your declaration is hosted to the top, if you see, and rest the code remains the same. So this is your before hosting and this is your after hosting, right? So always remember the concept that we learned is in case of hosting, when you are using var, your declaration is going to move to the top, your, you can say, initialization is going to remain at the same place. Let's do a small question so that you remember it always. Example, similar kind of thing. You have var I is equal to 10 in this case, where j is equal to, j is just declare, we have not initialized, where you have total basically, which is your I plus j, and then you have your j is equal to 20, and I'm trying to access couple of variables and you have to tell me what will be the outcome at this place. So console.log I'm going to put over here so I can comment it out so that you don't get confused in the console, and we will focus over here. So this is your one. Let's see what is going to be the outcome at this level. Then I'm also trying to basically put the value of j over here and the value total at this point. So let's see what all you are able to access at this moment. So first we'll check at this moment, then we'll check at this moment, third we will check at this moment, fourth we will check at this moment, fifth we will check at this moment. So I can do some changes that will make your life easy, but something like this. Perfect. So we have third and fourth. If you understand all those outcomes, then your life is basically sorted. So let's go one at a time. So in this case, now comment down basically what is going to be the outcome of this particular scenario. So tell me what do you think is the outcome. So over here, as per the definition, so your var get hosted. When I say var get hosted, only the declaration moves to the top. Remember, this is the declaration, this is the declaration, and this is the declaration. Let's see how our code is going to be converted after hosting, right? So after hosting, our code is going to look like something like, let me copy, paste, only move the declaration to the top. Move it to the top and say bye-bye to the declaration. Move this declaration to the top, say bye-bye. Move the declaration to the top and let the initialization be at the same place. Only the declaration are going to be moved. Now, if you try to relate, I think you will be easily able to answer. What happened? Your I is undefined at this level, j is also, and total is also undefined at this level. Now, your I is 10 at this level, j is still undefined, total is still undefined. Similarly, at third level, you see it does not have any declaration, the same value. At this level, you will see your I is 10, your j is 20, and your total has converted to 10 plus 20, which is 30 over here. So if you save, you will be able to see the outcome as we talked about, right? So, so we have two values. I can comment so that you see only the one. So you see, this is all undefined. This is 10 is initialized. All other are undefined. Similarly here, in case of console.log 4, I think you are able to see, hey, this is the all the values you have. You have 10, 20, and the total is also initialized at this level. Perfect. I hope at a high level, you are able to understand how this basically hosting is working. So remember, only your declaration will move, not the other thing. Now, what happens the similar thing when we use with let or const? Let's try to understand that example as well. So if I would have done similar case, let's take this example number 1, and we are doing with let. So if this was let, not const, not var, what will happen? Any idea, guys? So in case of let, consider let are, I will help you. In case of let are your neighbors. If you get early, so Do you really think your neighbor is saying, going to treat, hey, okay, you came early, okay, you sit, it's completely okay, party will start for after 4 hours, you are still invited? No, that doesn't happen. Your neighbor says, go back, man. Once the party start, you come, right? You are not invited. So you are not welcomed at all, basically, if you reached early. Same thing is with your let in const. You are not invited, you are not welcomed at all. It's like it will throw the error. What happens? Let's try to understand. In this case, if you try to access the value which is a, right, which is before it declaration, before you are invited, basically, right, you see, you will actually end up getting an error. So I will help you to get this data where you will see not info, but I will get all the information default. When you see, try to see the default, you see cannot access a variable a before the initialization. If you try to access a before the initialization, sorry boss, in case of let, you cannot access it. So let me try to help you to understand one important thing. People do say that let get hosted, even your let definitions are here. Don't get into that. Technically, if you see, yes, your let in the compilation phase get hosted and execution phase, you don't have value. Difficult to remember, right? What you have to remember, in case of let, your definition, your declaration and initialization will remain at the same place where you have written. Simple, right? So you always remember, in case of var, your declaration was moving to the top. In case of let and const, the code remains exactly same what you have written. Nothing is going to shift or shuffle or whatnot, right? Even people know that in the compilation phase, hey, someone is going to use a variable called let a, but until unless you officially come into the picture, you are thrown as an error, like you will get an error. So awareness is there, like a will be there somewhere in this particular code, but no one will guarantee until unless you see a declared at any place, right? So remember guys, in case of let, your code does not change, your definition does not change. Wherever you have written as it is, it will work. If you try to access before where you have declared, it will simply throw the error. But at the same time, if I would have written this code something like this, where my declaration was above and my initialization was below, which is I'm doing it manually, right? It is not happening under the hood. If I'm writing the code like this works. It says that, boss, because your declaration exists, your value will be undefined at this moment. So you see, if you have written manually that let a, after this moment you can access your variable anywhere down the line. Anywhere down the line in that particular block scope, you can access it. I hope that makes sense. Now, how do you remember one interesting thing? So to remember where your vars are, like you are going to your relatives without any invite. They won't reject. They will say, hey, you came, it's okay, you sit, but they are not going to value until the party starts. But your neighbors are your like let and const. If you reach early, they are going to throw the error and say that, boss, go back. You are not invited until the party starts. So that is how you always remember. And we can try out multiple examples on that as well. There is another concept which I am going to help you to understand. But before I help you to understand, let's try to see a couple of examples over here. We talked about hosting, right? We talked about where getting hosted, let and const, the declaration. So basically you don't have value, you get error if you try to basically access. Technically, all of them get hosted, but don't remember in that fashion. You see, when we say hosted, your declaration moves to the top. In these cases, your declaration is not moving to the top. Easy way to remember from the code. Now, what is this named function and anonymous function? Let's see that example so that you can remember always. You might have faced a problem something like this. Let me try to help you. Like, have you written a code something like sum is equal to a function? It can be named, you can say arrow function or non-arrow function, hardly matters. But something like this, which is you have a comma b. One is this. Now you try to access the function sum over here. What do you think? What is going to be the outcome? Any guesses, guys? So I have a function which I have written. Function is equal to, like, sum is equal to a function which does the a plus b, and we are returning the result of that. Only the difference is I'm trying to access this sum function before its declaration. So what is going to happen? Or I will maybe call it var. So I will help you to understand what exactly happens over here. So when you try to access a variable called sum or a function, if you see it's storing a function and you try to access above it. One thing to notice, which is very important, this is a normal variable, guys. So it is not a function type. It's a normal variable where you are storing a function into it, like any integer value, like any object array. It's a container where you are storing a function inside this particular container. Now, the properties of hosting will apply as of a normal var variable. What does it mean? Your var declaration will move to the top. Let me show you. After hosting, over here hosting will happen, and now you will be surprised. What, Chirag, seriously, are you talking about the hosting applies over here? Yes, the hosting applies. So your declaration will move to the top. Your initialization will remain the same place, and I can help you to understand. So if I try to print this value, like I try to print what is the value of sum at this point, and similarly I try to print value of sum at this point, you will see an interesting thing. So what you are going to see, first, it is undefined. It means the declaration was there. Hence you got undefined at this level because it got hosted, because it was a normal variable, it got hosted, and you can see undefined. But sum was undefined, it was not a function. So you try to treat sum as a function, hence it threw the error which says that sum is not a function. Sum is undefined till this level. Remember, sum is undefined till this level, and hence you got this error. Now, if I would have changed this code to a simple, I'm talking about all of those examples are related to your anonymous function. Remember. Now, if this was let, I hope you guys are smart enough. If this was let, what do you think? What is going to be the outcome? What do you think? What is going to be the outcome? Remains the same. In case of let, hosting doesn't happen. When I say hosting, this declaration does not move to the top, and it will throw the error. Boss, you're trying to access sum, and before it is, you can say initialize. So you see, so before it initialization, you are trying to basically access, and this is not accepted. Boom, you are gone. So your sum basically does not move over here. It does not have a value called undefined. Hence you try to access and it throws error, says boom. I will not work. But there is an interesting version to that. You might have written the similar code, something like this, which is return a plus b. Now, can you tell me, guys, what happens in this case? Any answers? Let's see. If you try to access this code before and after, when I say before and after, if I try to access this code above, which is what is the sum, and second, I am trying to execute this sum 1, 2. What do you think, guys? What is the outcome over here and what is the outcome over here, which is at line number 1 and 2? Give a shot. This is interesting. This is not a variable assigning. It's a function. It's a sum as a function, which we call it named function. This is something interesting, and you might have faced this problem in your execution itself. So at this moment, remember, this entire function after hosting get moved to the top, and your code will become something like this. So what does it mean? Let's see what I meant by. So if you notice, I will first maybe comment it out so that you can see the outcome. So you see, it's a function at this level and your value is 3 at this level. How it is happening? Let's see, understand. Okay, so commenting it back. So try to see what happened over here. So you see, when I say your var get hosted to the top and it is value is assigned to undefined. In case of named function, your named function, your definitions, entire definition of that function move to the top. So this sum will move to the top. Now if you see at this moment, what is sum? Sum is a function and you are trying to execute with 1, 2 and you will get a value as in 1, 2. So that works. So this code will not throw error. This code will work perfectly fine. The reason being, your named function get hosted with its definition on the top, so that you can access anywhere in that particular file, right? Or you can say in that particular scope. That is something, a beauty of the hosting with a named function that exists, which with the anonymous function it was not possible. And if it is anonymous, you have to be cautious. Where you are declaring, you can only access after that. If you are trying to access before, it will throw the error. So I hope you learned something interesting. You might have faced this problem, and let me know if you have faced this similar problem when you were coding. So you got to learn these many concepts from Babu Bhaiya. And now let's quickly talk about what the hell this TDD, which is temporary dead zone. As I said, nothing fancy. It's a duration. Basically, I will tell you what that duration. In let and const, we talked about some errors. Example, your code starts, the file code basically starts over here, or I can say you have a block scope, something like this. Now, what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to have my variable A over here, and I have lot of other code basically which is written. So I have written lot of some extra code, some dummy code. So there are a lot of code basically which exist at this moment. So you have some code which you have written, many line of code that you have written, and you are trying to access this variable over here, which is fine. Now let's try to understand what the hell this temporary dead zone is. As I said, your party starts at this point. Your party starts when I say your actual declaration happens at this point, which is very, very important. Line number 111. And if you try to access this variable before the party starts, which is from here in this particular scope to the where the party starts, it will say temporary dead zone. Boss, you cannot access this variable because this variable is not yet initialized, right? That is the issue. That is the error you are going to get. So remember, from the starting of this particular block scope where this variable is actually exists to the point where this actual declaration happened, this is your temporary dead zone, which is if you come after this, you are invited, people will welcome, hey, come have party, will have something. But if you try to access over here, it will say, boss, not invited, go back. The example I was talking about, your neighbor. And this temporary dead zone exists only for let and const. So whenever you are using let and const, you have a concept called temporary dead zone, which is you try to access before where the declaration happened, you are in a temporary dead zone. So nothing fancy, it's a terminology, but very important terminology to remember. So this is what, so if you try to access anywhere above, so if you write console.log anywhere which is like 0, so you will get cannot access A before initialization anywhere in this particular code, in this particular scope. If you try to access in the starting, same thing, you cannot access A before. So none of this code is going to be executed. You will get error thrown from here itself. So this is the beauty of temporary dead zone. Now, Babu Bhaiya have some questions for you. So first question, basically, these are the two questions. Try to solve this question and share in the comment. I would love to see the answers that you are basically bringing and the concept that you are learning. So before we say bye-bye to this session, thanks a lot for watching this. Thanks for all the love and the trust that you have shown for the entire Chakde JavaScript series and the previous series as well. So a humble request, guys, please like, share as much as possible, spread this video as much as possible. I'm trying to bring the best JavaScript concepts and the structured way of learning in JavaScript for you guys. For that, I need humble support. So please spread as much as possible and let me know what more you are basically looking. If you want more examples, you need some more twist things to remember, I'm happy to basically bring those up. So do share as much as possible. You are my team who is going to help me to spread it as much as possible. Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye. See you.